Hey folks, it's Ron Lappin again from Kentucky Lake Outdoors. We're a little early on this podcast, but to keep you all informed, we're selling a lot of topwater baits right now. This is a funny kind of year. There's a lot of tweeners. A tweener is one that either just got done spawning or is getting ready to go in and spawn. And both of those fish feed on a regular basis. So there's a lot of fish roaming around. The full moon of yesterday, today, and tomorrow will probably put a large drove of fish on the bank. And, two good buddies of mine, probably two of the best topwater fishermen I know, Craig Powers and Colby Krieger, said they live to come to Kentucky Lake in May because when the fish were in the bushes and everybody was flipping, they had their very best topwater days. And, I've got a couple of their baits here. This is a bait you can't find anymore. It hadn't been made in years, and it was a Rebel bait. It's a P65 pop art and a P70 pop art. Here's one in tilapia, hand painted by Ray White in Mayfield, Kentucky. Here's what the original looks like, and these baits are only made by Tennessee Tackle, and you have to get a whole run of them to get the baits, but they're the original pop arts from Rebel, and they're pretty good bait because they do something that some of the new baits don't do. They walk, they pop, and they spit, and that's a combination that's hard to come up with. And there are a lot more baits that'll do it. A couple of things those guys taught me. Also, I spent a lot of years around Zell Rowland, who hand-tuned pop arts. Sanded them down to where they were thin, where they'd spit better and walk better. But we're going to talk about the baits we have in the store here and some of the things we did. We showed you some footage, pardon me, of us fishing topwater baits. And, everybody has their own system of fishing a topwater bait. I'd probably rather catch them on a jerkbait or a topwater bait than any other way. I like to catch them any way they'll bite. But I'd probably rather catch them that way when it's possible. And yesterday we were unable to get a bite yesterday morning in the period of time we had to work with. And I really thought all that wind we had would help us. And a lot of times the wind is your friend when it comes to fishing a topwater bait. It breaks the water up where the fish can't see everything that happens. And a lot of times you're able to fool them. This time of year, I remember a tournament. I think Dan Grimes, who works here at the store, told me Rick Clunn won the 85 All-American, Redman All-American at that time at Havasu, fishing a topwater bait way up the Colorado River. And I remember in an interview with him, he said as soon as the water gets to 65 degrees, which we all know is that magic number for fish to spawn, he started throwing a buzz bait. And his assessment of that is the fish were roaming, and they didn't want something stopped over their head. And that's the biggest thing about fishing a topwater bait. Do you fish a buzz bait? Do you fish a pencil popper? Do you fish a walking bait? Do you fish a popping bait? Do you fish one of the plopper type baits? The key to that is you've got to figure out whether the fish want something stopped over their head or they want something that's continually moving. Most people fish the plopper by just reeling it fast, reeling it slow, or ripping it instead of stopping it. But it's an excellent bait also to stop periodically and jerk it a little bit and make that tail spin. But that's the key, and that's what a fisherman has to know. There's a lot of different outlooks on line and everything. A lot of people use braided line. For topwater baits. I personally use 15-pound or 17-pound big game, monofilament. I like that little bit of stretch because a lot of times the biggest mistake a topwater fisherman makes is to prematurely set the hook before the fish actually gets the bait in. And a lot of time your best topwater bite, everybody likes those explosions, but a lot of times a fish is just knocking that bait out of the way or trying to get it away. The best topwater bite is that fish that comes up behind it, sucks it in and backs up. You're not going to miss that fish very often because its intent was to eat that bait as food. That's why it's important to match the size of the bait to whatever they're feeding on and it has a lot to do with color too. Yesterday you saw us fish a buzz bait, and you saw us fish several different baits. And to me, again, if you've watched many of our podcasts, the little things, detail is much more important than big things. Fish don't care where you bought your rod. They don't care what line you got on there, although it will make a difference on how your bait acts. And they don't care who you are. They want to eat something, and that's the best time to use a topwater bait. There are some shad spawn going on right now on Kentucky Lake. Not a great deal, I think, as these warm nights and this full moon gets through. This drove of fish that's moving up right now will be able to eat spawning shad, and that's a great time for a topwater bait. And what we're going to talk about is a system. I was fortunate enough to help with McCracken County's bass camp last year, and went over several things, and probably the most paid attention to part of it was the topwater series. There's a knot that most good fishermen use. Zell Rowland uses a different knot than Craig and Kobe, but a topwater knot is a knot that allows, I see people come in here and buy clips to put on your topwater bait. If that works for you, that's great. But I promise you, anything that's in the water will hang on that clip and change the action of your bait. For me, I always present my bait, as you'll see in the videos that's shown here. I always present my bait with my feet up next to the gunwale and the rod down. I try to pull the rod the same distance every time. Same distance every time. Whether I do it fast or I do it slow, which is cadence, which is important in fishing a topwater bait, I still try to move it the same way. I see a lot of people fish their topwater bait with their rod up like this. The only problem with is as a long cast, it's great for that topwater bait to do it out there, but as you start getting closer with your rod up like this, you actually pull the nose of the bait up out of the water, so it won't react no matter what kind of bait you're using, plopper, stick bait, walking bait, popper. It won't work as well. A lot of people pull across their body like this, which works, and it will allow you to keep that bait down. But what you need to remember is you need to do the same thing every time. Again, cadence is the speed you do it. How you do it determines on what the bait does. This topwater knot we're going to show you will allow your bait to move. A topwater bait does just as much good when you stop it, especially one that you stop over their heads, as it does when it's moving. And what this knot allows it to do, I've got a real California bait here, a handmade wooden bait from Redding, California. What it allows it to do, it allows it to walk like this, but the line's not tied directly to the eye, and it allows it to slip, the knot to slip. Now, of course, when you tighten up on it, you pull this knot tight, but it takes a second for you to do that, and many times that's, again, the biggest mistake people make, setting a hook too early on a topwater bait. That allows you to keep that from happening. You'll get the fish to get its hooks in its mouth, maybe get the secondary hook somewhere on the outside of its mouth, give you a better hookup. But again, we'll show you how to do that here in just a minute. We'll get a close-up. We'll get Dalton to get a close-up so you can see. We've got some orange line and a great big old bait with a big old eye to show you how to do that. But again, we'll be glad to show it to you anytime you come in. These are my boxes, a few of my boxes. I didn't bring all of my boxes, but we've got about every kind of topwater bait there is. These are pencil poppers and stick baits. These are walking baits and poppers, and even some pompadour. That's really popular bait. Looks like a big old bumblebee. What happens, these blades swing, they hold tight. When you let go of them, they pull against the bait, and the bait moves forward a little bit. Actually looks like it's moving. Pretty good bait if you're not having to move a lot of water. We got those in stock in a couple of sizes. You can't use your wimpy rod to throw these things. They're pretty good size bait. We've got all kinds of walking baits in stock. We've got the Lucky Craft series. We've got all kinds of the Hidden series. We've got all the Strike King baits. We've got the Mega Dog. We've got the Sexy Dog. and we got the Sexy Dog Junior in stock. They've been some of our biggest sellers. All Strike King baits have a price point value. There's a lot of baits that cost more money, but Strike King's baits all stay in the same price range. Very reasonable, very, very good from bait to bait. A lot of times you'll get a dozen baits, and out of the dozen baits you get, 2 or 3 of them won't run like the rest of them. That does not seem to be the case between the Berkley baits or the Strike King baits, especially in the Topwater series baits. So we'll talk about that. Yesterday we fished a little bitty popper on a spinning rod. One of my favorite ways to do it. When you start throwing a popper, I don't know how you ever miss a fish on a topwater bait, because these hooks hook everything. I've even got the little red protectors on. When you start fishing a popper this size, it's advantageous to fish it on a spinning rod. And what I throw is a Dobbin 681 Champion Series rod with 20-pound vicious no fade braid, and I've got 17-pound green big game on there. I've got the Topwater Knot already tied on this bait. You saw us skip it some yesterday. You saw us make it skip up and hit the dock some yesterday. You saw us hang it some yesterday. But again, that's going to happen. But when you're fishing a bait that small, a rod that's medium action, plenty of butt, but plenty of tip, allows you to throw the bait. And all you have to do is move the rod tip of the rod like this to make the bait walk and everything else. That particular bait there, I got my line here hang up. That particular bait there is the Berkley bait, the Bullet Pop in a 60. We have the 60, the 70, and the 95 series on those baits in stock. And Berkley's coming out with some new stuff this year. We also have their Cane Walker, which is one of the most popular pencil type baits. This is a Cane Walker right here in a 120. They're coming out with a 95 series, which will be about this long, and they're a price point baits. They're very reasonable, $7.99 for the 120 size. I think the other one will be about about $6.99. Also, you see a lot of people fishing black. Black's a very popular color in a topwater bait. Probably the best selling plopper type bait we have is that Merganser by Whopper Plopper, River to Sea, and this is the Black Lab Cane Walker from Berkley. And you see hackles on the back of nearly all of these baits. What a good hackle does, a good feather hand-tied hackle will allow those feathers who have oil in them, especially chicken feathers, to move like this on the water when you stop your bait. And what that does, it makes it look real. If you tie this knot, we're going to show you how to tie. When you stop that bait, it'll turn like it's moving after you stop your bait, and that hackle will move behind it. Makes it look real. If you tie directly to the eye, no matter if you use a Palomar, improved cinch, a double improved cinch, no matter what you tie, that bait will not turn when you stop. A lot of times you'll get as many bites with what the bait does after you stop it as you will while you're fishing it. So and hackles are important to me. There are some times that I don't use a hackle in situations where you're going to throw a bait a long way and you got fish coming up anyway. It doesn't seem to make as much difference. It's a feeding frenzy, so you can throw it farther with that, and it doesn't seem to make much difference. Here's a P70 Popar with the original hackle on it, and you see that's just craft hair, so it's not going to show you much. Here is a hand-tied hackle, and you can see it's feathers, it's chicken feathers. This particular bait is a Evergreen Shire Blow in the Bone Series in a 95 size or 105 size, and it's very important to what this bait looks like when you stop it. So hackles are important. We do have 2 or 3 different brands of tied hackles in stock. We'll be glad to help you pick it out. A lot of people want to upsize their hackle hook size on the back of their bait. I caution you in doing that because it changes the action of the bait. Anytime you put more weight, these baits are scientifically designed to be fished with the hooks that are on them. Now you can change and put lighter hooks and do something, and you can change and put heavier hooks, but you got to offset that weight somewhere. So we can help you. Come in the store here. We'll be glad to help you pick out hackles for your bait, replacement hooks. A lot of people take the hooks off a bait the minute they get them out of the package and replace them. But most manufacturers have gone with a specific brand of hooks. All the Berkley baits have fusion hooks on them. Probably from a price points, some of the best hooks out there we carry at Gamakatsu, VMC, have a lot of real good stuff. Different price ranges we'll be glad to help you with. But hackles are important. Don't take them off just because you don't know why they're on there. We'll show you a few tips here. I actually take a black marker and mark the ends of a hackle every once in a while to look like the black on a tail. A lot of your bait fish and even some of your game fish, bass, of course, have that black line on their tail. And I do that. Oftentimes I'll take one feather out of a feather hackle and stick it in some dipping dye, and then I usually take a fan immediately and dry it so the feather won't stick together. There's a lot of things you can do to make your bait look better to them. Also, when you get to the period now that there are fish roaming, a lot of times a buzz bait's better than something stopped over their head. Yesterday we threw 2 different buzz baits. We've got the new Mega Bass buzz bait, the Jamaica Boa, and we threw it. It's a bait. It's got a rivet right here in line that the blade hits and spins, makes an unusual noise. The bait itself has holes in the blade. It's a ventilated blade. This is a really stout bait with a big old hook on it. It's got its own trailer involved. It's got a 4-prong trailer on it there. It's got a real good skirt on it. A lot of people choose to throw a buzz bait without a skirt, or even put a swim bait on there, a small swim bait. That's all good and fine. It's according up to you, and it's according to what the fish will hit. The rod, we threw that on yesterday, and again, as I told you yesterday in the footage there, and you'll see this is 17-pound green big game. That's what I throw. I like monofilament line for throwing a buzz bait and a topwater bait. I like that little extra give to give me a second to feel the fish and get the hooks in them. Again, as I say, and I can't say it near enough, most people set the hook way too early when you're fishing a topwater bait. This particular rod is a Sierra Series Dobbins 733. I always use an 8-to-1 reel on with my buzz bait, or a 10-to-1 reel. I love my Revo Rockets to do that. Yesterday we threw my favorite buzz bait, which is a 1/4 ounce crocagator. This is an irritating buzz bait. Those of you that don't know how to tune a buzz bait, you can take a head knocker like this buzz bait right here, and you can push the head down against the blade down against the head till it hits and stops, and you can hold it out your window as you're going down the road 60 miles an hour. About 2 miles at 60 miles an hour will cut a groove in that head right there. That's where you get the clacking sound. The more you do it, the looser the blade gets, the higher the pitch. It sounds like a very irritating bird chirping in your backyard. And as you see right here, this is a number 6 VMC treble hook I have on the back of it. Gives you more constant hookups. That's a piece of rubber tubing, and I made a hook keeper on there. The only thing you'll have to do is straighten that hook up where everything's aligned. Anytime you throw a wired bait, spinner bait, or a buzz bait inline, you want to make sure that the hook, the line tie, and where the blade goes on are all in a straight line. Now you can make a lefty or a righty if you're fishing docks. A lot of times Lake of the Ozarks, made famous over there. Matter of fact, this is a Lake of the Ozarks bait. It's a crocagator, one of our best sellers. We got them in stock. You can turn the blade away where the bait will run to the right, or you can turn the blade the other way where the bait will turn to the left. And when you're fishing the right side of a dock, you fish a lefty, and when you're fishing the left side of a dock, you fish a righty. So works out pretty well. You can tune the baits like that, but to get one to run straight, you want to make sure that everything is in line. Again, this is clear 17 pound. This is a Revo Rocket, a 10-to-1 reel. What it allows you to do is to make that buzzbait chirp by bouncing your rod, make it spin a little faster, but you can keep your line caught up. Takes up a lot more line, 10-to-1 does, than a 6-to-1, a 7-to-1, or an 8-to-1. And that is also a 733 Sierra series by Dobbins. Also yesterday, my favorite topwater rod is actually a jerkbait rod. It's what I fish my poppers on, especially my smaller poppers, this size popper. And the smaller size popper, I love throwing it on this rod right here. It is a Dobbins XP 635 CB. We had this rod in stock. We sold our last one. We've got some more coming. But this is a 7-to-1 Revo SX. And again, this is 17 pound green, 17 pound green, big game with a topwater knot tied on it. And this is the 70 series bullet pop from Berkeley. It's got the fusion hooks on it. It's got a good hackle on the back of it. As you can see, I've taken a marker and I've marked black over the back of that hackle. Just taken a permanent marker and laid it on something you don't mind getting a marker on and marked that hackle black on the back of it. It's a great river bait, one of my favorite baits to throw in the Tennessee and the Cumberland River. And then yesterday, when the fish are just coming down off the spawn and everything, the shad spawn's going on, very seldom ever will you see many shad bigger than this size right here. So what yesterday I chose, didn't get a bite on it, actually had a bluegill come up and hit it. I chose the smaller size whopper plopper. And we've got this in stock. We're going to have their new sizes. They have a new 65 size that's even smaller than this, that'll look a whole lot like some of the smaller inline topwater baits. It's a really great bait. The tail's unbelievable on it. What we did yesterday is we actually took a rod and stuck it down, like I said, and reeled it slow, but every once in a while we'd stop it and just chirp the rod and make the tail spin a few times and stop. We're using 40-pound vicious no-fade braid on here. That line's worked out really well for me. The knot I use on a plop or anything I'm using braid is a double improved cinch, which we'll show you here in a few minutes. Get a close-up view of it. Also a bait that's probably been our best seller of those type baits has been the Chopo. It's a Berkeley bait. This is Black Lab Chopo here. Works really well. That's the 120 size. We have it that smaller size there, 95, and we also have the 105 size. Another bait we picked up this year is called the Drunken Mullet. It's by Chase Baits. We'll show you a close-up of this bait. It works a whole lot like the plopper does, but it's jointed. Halfway down the bait, the whole back end wags. So when you pull it slow, it wags, and when you rip it, it looks like it's wagging its tail at you. Really good bait. Got several of those, 2 different sizes in stock. A lot of people are intimidated by a great big topwater bait. If you have a fish that is tight to a piece of cover, a brush pile, a stump, a log, or something like that, it usually takes a bait that moves a lot of water to get that fish to come off and feed. So that's why I choose the bigger pompadour, big walking baits, the big plopper, the big sexy dog, the mega sexy dog. It'll bring those fish off those things. It's more of a pattern that shows up in the fall when the fish are feeding for winter, that last big heavy feed. There's several things you can do to improve your bait. Always check your hooks. A lot of people, like I say, replace their hooks right out of the package. I don't think that's as necessary now. Heading over the years, used aluminum hooks or saltwater hooks, which I don't like. And some people want to change a lighter wire hook, which digs in a whole lot easier. It breaks easier and bends easier, but it digs in a whole lot quicker. There's a lot of things you can do, and we can help you here at the store figure out what that is. let's talk about the buzz baits a minute. We probably got as many buzz baits in as anybody around. Probably got the biggest topwater section as anybody between Nashville and St. Louis. And what we've got here are two of our best-selling buzz baits. This is the Crocodile Head Knocker. Again, I showed you how to tune it. Out your window, 60 miles an hour for about 2 miles. And this is the Jacob Wheeler series buzz bait. This particular bait is a finesse. We have it in the original finesse. The only difference in the two baits is the size of the blade. The finesse is a tighter, smaller blade, doesn't make as much noise. The bigger blade makes a lot more noise and loses a lot more water. We've got those in stock. Something else that's sold really well for us, pretty unique bait here, the Firecracker. It's a Jackal bait. It has a spin blade halfway up the arm, and what happens is the big bait on the buzz bait actually hits this spinner and makes it spin. Not only does it give it more lift, makes it come up quicker, it makes an unusual sound where you hit that blade, both those blades hit, and it's metal to metal, so it makes a real clacking sound. Worked out real well. We've got those in stock. We've got all the lines you need. Let's talk about rods a minute. Over the last couple of years, a lot of your pros, David Fritz, Kevin Van Dam, a lot of the guys on several of the pro staffs have used their company's glass rods for the topwater bait. And the reason for that is the rod has a lot slower recovery. Again, that's why I use monofilament line, because it gives me time to have a little stretch before I tighten up on the fish to get the hooks in them. We have just a little bit of everything in stock. This particular rod's a brand new KVD rod by Lew's. We've got the CC4 in stock. We've got it in all 4 sizes. It is a glass rod with a very slow recovery glass tip, a lot of strength. A lot of people like a 7-foot rod, especially for the bigger, the cane walker and the shire blow and all the pencil type baits. And this glass rod allows you a little time to get the hooks in the fish. We also have the St. Croix rod in stock and the David Fritz Lew's rod in stock. I'd like to show you St. Croix. We just sold our last one. We've got some more coming. This is a David Fritz perfect crankbait special. Again, it's a glass rod, a very slow recovery, glass tip, allows you to make long casts and get your top water hooks in a fish before you get them back. They really ought to call these rods treble hook rods. Anything you use except for a spoon that has a treble hook on it, you'd probably be better off using on a slow recovery rod, because it allows you to feel the bite, get the rod bending, and load up on the fish before the fish has a chance to get rid of it. And we've got this in stock. We've got some great crankbait rods, about every price range. This is probably one of our most popular crankbait rods. Stephen Bargee won a tournament on the Tennessee River. Congratulations, Stephen, this week throwing this crankbait rod. This is a Colt Series Dobbins. It's a $79 rod. It's a 705 CB. It is a composite rod, glass and graphite. It's got a lot of bend to it, still plenty of butt. Great crankbait rod for topwater baits. We also have the next series up in Dobbins, which is a Fury 705 CB. Same thing. It's a graphite rod with a very slow recovery, really fast tip, but plenty of butt. This is a Daiwa Tatula series rod. It's actually a jerkbait rod. It's a 6.6 rod. When you're choosing a rod, a lot of people don't think about their height. When you're 5'8" and taller laying down than you are standing up, I think about my rod. A long rod doesn't work well for me because, as I showed you in the video yesterday, I put my rod right in front of me and make the same pull every time. Whether I do it fast or slow, I make the same pull every time. And this particular rod's a 6.6 rod. It's a casting rod, but it works out really well. It's got a fast tip on it, plenty of butt. It's actually designed for jerk baits, but it's a great topwater rod. And this year, Abu Garcia has gone with their winch and brought out a winch series set of cranking rods. 3 different rods. We have 2 of them in stock. We've sold out of the shorter one. But this particular rod is 7.6 with a 7.4 and a 7.3. And this particular rod is great for the plopper type baits, a buzz bait. It's got a fast tip, but it's got plenty of butt. You can throw them a long way. That's an advantage of the long rod, is to be able to find those schooling fish right out in the middle of a pocket and be able to make a long cast and hit them. So all these rods are in stock, everywhere from $69 to $369. We got anything you need, and we'll be glad to help you. Again, for me, the key is very simple. You've got to find out what cadence, how fast you work the bait, the fish want it. Usually takes the first bite of the morning. Always remember, when you get that bite, what were you doing? Were you reaching down to get a drink out of your Diet Coke and the bait was sitting still? Were you talking to your friends and looking away, and did it stop? Did you slow down because you wind blew your cat off? Think about what you were doing when you got that first bite. A big percentage of the time, unless your conditions change during the day, that's the thing you need to pay attention to. You know, fish that are feeding actively in front of you, sometimes they're pretty stupid. It doesn't take any kind of timing or anything else. All you got to do is get the bait in the general proximity of the bait they're feeding on and give them an opportunity to see it. The color is a very important thing. Again, the black bait's a Merganser bait. This is a new bait from Spro, Essential Series E-Pop 80. Black bait, very popular bait. The Shire Blow in black. The Merganser in the Whopper Plopper. The Chopo and Black Lab. All important. You've got all different colors of shed. You know, it was funny yesterday. We were talking about our favorite topwater baits. Dalton and I. Dalton Richards, he's also our cameraman here and does all our technical work here, and he's really improved our website. Hope you're enjoying it. Be sure to go on there at Tackle Inc. and order all your stuff. We were talking about our favorite topwater baits. Well, my favorite topwater bait, it's been around a long time, and it won't ever go away because it is probably one of the best ever built, is a Lucky Craft Gunfish. It is a popping, walking, splashing topwater bait. You can do anything you want to with it. It's got a lot of weight to it. You can get it in 5 different sizes. You can get it in so big, oh my God, I can't believe a fish had ever hit it, kind of like this bait here, and you can get it in a 95 size, which is probably the most popular size. We have all this stuff in stock, and we want to make sure that you come in and talk to us. Something that's very important too. Every time I go, the first thing I do in fishing my topwater baits is check the drag on my reel and check my hooks to make sure that I don't have a hook point that's broken, or a hook where the throat of the hook is open. Bend it back to where it's in the right place. All that's important, especially when you're fishing around cover. A hook that's astray out like that will hang cover a whole lot quicker. Also, people want to change the length of the shank on their hook, and those companies design those baits to have the hook a certain distance away from that bait. If you go to a longer shank hook and that hook hangs down further, 2 things happen. With a longer shank, it's a heavier hook. The bait won't perform as well. With a long shank, it's more likely to hit that stump you're going to pull it over, or that brush pile you're going to pull it over, or that weed bed you're going to pull it over. So what you want to do, if you're going to change your hooks and you bend them up, and that happens, gar and white perch and everything else that swims will hit a topwater bait. Just make sure that you replace the hooks with the same size, the same shaft, same shank length as you had on there. That's the only way your bait's going to perform the same every time. And to me, the most important thing in a topwater bait is the knot. And we've done our best to try to show you. It's hard to show somebody how to tie a monofilament line, and we think you're seeing this firsthand, folks. We haven't tried this knot, but we think we can tie it with this bow fishing line. If you can't see that, you probably don't need to be fishing. But anyway, we're gonna get a close up of this in a minute. We're gonna show you the topwater knot. We're gonna start with a simple loop knot. take this simple loop knot and tie it in your line. Let's get just like this. Then we're going to take this tag and we're going to put it through the eye of the topwater bait. We're going to take the tag and slip it back through the loop, just like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this loose tag and we're going to pull the knot down close to the bait, just like this. Then we're going to take our fingers and hold it on the knot. We're going to take the loop 1, 2, 3 around the line. Then we're going to go back to our loop. We're going to stick this through the loop, back through the loop, go through the loop line, and pull it out, just like this. And then we're going to tighten it. What you've got is you've got a knot that allows that loop to slip, but it will not come loose. What you do is you take and trim your tag off, and there you have the topwater knot. But all these things, little bitty detail things, are important. You know, I'm not going to tell you anything that I don't personally do. It's hard to convince somebody that you do something if you don't do it. You can't speak about something you do unless you actually do it. The quickest way to reinstate what you know about fishing, technique, or anything else is to teach someone else. The best someone else to teach is a young person in your neighborhood who may have a disabled parent or a single parent that can't take them fishing. If you have a boat, let's start with once a year. Once a year, try to find a young person that'll never get a chance to go fishing and take them fishing. I promise you, it'll be the best thing you ever did for that young person, and it'll be a great day for you to you know, have a study period on what you know about fishing. That's the quickest way I know of to get a kid started in the right way in life and the right way in sports. It teaches them a lot about the outdoors, all those things that God's put on this earth for us to enjoy. But be sure to follow along, take that young person fishing, watch them grow up and love what you taught them. Now what we're going to show you here is this knot, and probably what we'll do is we'll get a close-up of this. We'll change the camera and everything when you can see exactly what we're doing. Again, if you have any questions of what this knot allows you to do is have a walking bait or a popping bait that will move after you stop the bait where it looks like it's alive. A lot of time just that little bitty movement will draw a strike that you won't get in any other way. Now, we appreciate you watching us. We hope you've enjoyed what we've done today. God bless you and good fishing.